Welcome to Yard Talk. I'm Doug.
Hi, I'm Greg.
I'm a trained landscape architect and I believe in strong design.
I'm a born naturalist and I think that good design can create great backyard wildlife habitat.
As you'll see, we sometimes look at gardens in different ways.
But we both agree that the natural approach to lawn and garden care is the best.
We're here to answer some of the many questions we hear from homeowners all over King County who call in to the Natural Lawn and Garden Hotline.
We'll show you cutting-edge techniques to save you time and money without poisoning our children, our pets, or the environment.
Today we're in the Ravenna neighborhood at the home of Susan McDonald, who has some concerns about her backyard.
She's a very busy lady, hasn't had much time to take care of her grass, and you can see that it's mostly moss and is not doing very well.
I've lived here for almost 5 years now, and it's kind of a mess here in the backyard. There are some noxious weeds, and I just don't have a lot of time to do maintenance. What I'd really like to see is a really safe, healthy type of yard where he can play, something that's not too high maintenance, where I don't have to use pesticides or water too much. Something that's just really natural for us to spend time as a family.
So what Susan probably needs to do here is to clear out what's not working, some of the plants that are dying off, the lawn which has mostly moss in it, and put in some plants that are going to work for her.
There are many different ways to shrink a lawn. One of my favorite ways to do it is called sheet mulching. This technique, you just need some bark mulch, some newspaper or cardboard, and some edging material, and a little bit of sweat, and it'll work great for you. First, select the area of your yard that you'd like to get rid of. We're going to keep the grass over here in this instance and remove this grass over here. So to start with, we need to dig a trench. This is very important for creating a low maintenance landscape, because if you don't install edging material, this grass will grow into your newly created bed. So we're just going to dig a quick trench here. Not all of you will be fortunate enough to have this easy a digging, that's for sure. We have real sandy soil on this site. So here we're going to grab some newspaper and go ahead and lay nice thick sections. Notice we're not laying real thin sheets of paper out here. If you do that, the weeds will just come right through. It's important to get nice thick sections, and we lay them so it spills over, the newspaper spills over into the trench. That's very important. There used to be a lot of concern about using colored pages for sheet mulching, but they also use soy inks, so it's not a big deal. It'll just break down and you won't have to worry about contaminating your soil at all. Once we get the newspaper all down, we get this all spread out, we're going to go ahead and install the edging material, which will just fit. In this case, we found behind an old laurel bush, we found some cement blocks, which we'll clean off later. And we'll just nestle these nice down on top of the newspaper. That'll create a really nice seal here to keep that grass from growing up in there and save us long-term maintenance. All right, we get the blocks in place. Then we go over here, get ourselves some bark, or you can use wood chips or any other mulch. The reason we're not using compost here is because we don't want weed seeds to germinate on top of the newspaper. So in this case, we're just going to use bark mulch. And besides, the grass will break down and we'll create some really nice soil underneath this in case we want to replant later. All right. There's our bark down, and we can go ahead and spread this out to cover up the newspaper. Now, ideally, in this case, I should have cut away a little bit more soil here so the edging material helped restrain the bark from coming down. But since we have so many of these blocks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in and do a second course of block, and then that way we create this really nice edge that'll keep the bark in place, keep the grass in place, and we'll have a really low maintenance landscape.
For a larger yard, you can use a sod cutter. You have to rent it, and it's a big machine, but you can do it in a day. For this particular small job, Greg's going to show you another one of his techniques.
Since this is a small yard, it can be removed by hand. We can just go ahead and cut lines with a shovel all the way down the yard One trick that'll really save you your back is to cut 2 parallel lines like this down the yard, and then it makes it really easy to go back in and cut across this way between the lines, and then the sod just scrapes it right up in very manageable, easy pieces. Look at that.
As you can see, this can be a lot of work, so we're going to call in some of Susan's friends to give us a hand. Come on, guys. Since our homeowner wanted a low-maintenance wildlife garden, we've chosen some plants for her that have been in the Northwest for 5,000 years.
These native plants will thrive on neglect once they're established. You'll have to care for them and make sure to water them for the first couple of years, but after that, they're good to go. This one right here that we picked out is called SALAL. It's a good wildlife plant. Butterflies are attracted to it. It also has edible berries. But one of the coolest things about it is that area back there that had the English ivy. This will get in there, and it's a hardy plant that can help fight off the ivy.
You can hedge it too.
This one right here is evergreen huckleberry. This is one of my personal favorites. It has really neat leaf shape. It also is evergreen, so it stays green throughout the year. We're going to use it to help hide the chain link fence. Plus, this will provide berries for the birds and also provide berries for Susan and her son Adam. Third plant, this one right here is red flowering currant. This one is incredibly beautiful in the spring. It's just covered with showers of pink blossoms, and hummingbirds love it. They'll be buzzing all around it, which hopefully will provide some good entertainment value for the residents here in the house. And this one right here is my personal favorite.
Nothing in there.
Oh, this is a Trillium plant. It's just a bulb now. The top died back because we're planting in the fall. But come this spring, you'll have a beautiful solo wildflower that'll come up, and it's wonderful to look at, and Susan really wanted one. This one was salvaged from a site scheduled for construction. Before the bulldozers came in, we salvaged this, and now we're gonna sneak it into Susan's backyard. Then we went in and marked the area where we wanted the pathway and the patio to go. We laid that out with flour, and flour is great to work with because you can erase it or relay it out however you want, as long as it's not a windy day. Then we went in and laid out all our plants where we wanted to put them. We're here to go ahead and plant this spirea. But first, before we dig a hole for it, we need to figure out how big to dig the hole. We do that by removing the spirea from the pot and look at its roots. Now this one's not very root bound, so we can just loosen them up a little and see how they're laying. This is a nice plant. It hardly is root bound at all. We'll just loosen them up a little. We're to move this potting soil to the side a little bit because we don't want much of that to get inside the planting hole. So about twice as big around as that will be fine, and about as deep. We don't want the root crown, that's where the last root comes out of the plant. We don't want that buried beneath the soil. We want that buried beneath the soil, but we don't want to go any deeper than that. So let's go ahead and dig our hole. This is pretty easy digging here. It's kind of nice. The soil is really dry. We're gonna have to make sure to really water this plant in well. And let's put the plant in there to check it out. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and loosen the sides a little bit. Now notice I'm not putting any planting amendment into the hole. We found that plants survive a lot better if we just use the native soil that's in place. Afterwards, we'll put a mulch around the top of it, and that'll really help provide the nutrients the plant needs. But when you put the amendment in the hole, you can end up with spaces where the water doesn't move through it very well, and you can end up with some plant problems. So we'll go ahead and we've loosened up the sides of the hole. We'll nestle this down in there. And then we're gonna go ahead and just backfill. You know, this side over here is up a little bit high. I'm gonna just remove a little bit more soil. There we go, that's better. Now I'm gonna go ahead and just backfill around this again. Just making sure there's no air spaces. I really don't want all these root clods back in there. So, and I don't know what it is, you always seem to not have enough dirt to put back in the holes after you dig a hole. It seems like you'd have more, but it never seems to work out that way. All right, we'll tuck that all in around there. All right, it's looking pretty good. Now, in order to help this plant get through the summer months, we're going to have to water it for the first couple of years. So what we're going to do is build a little planting berm around the outside of it. A little watering basin, I guess, is a better name for it. And that'll help hold the moisture in. And, oh yes, I'm forgetting one more thing. Of course, when you first plant your shrubs, you really have to water them in good. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that basin with water. And after that infiltrates, I'll go ahead and cover this whole area with mulch, either bark. We have some compost that we're going to use in this situation. And then that'll really help retain the moisture and keep our plant really healthy. After a little bit of bickering back and forth about what plant goes where, we planted them, made sure they're planted properly. Then we go in and cover the whole area with compost because we removed all that grass, so there's really no organic matter left out there. So we went in with the compost and laid that all down. Now, over the compost, we put a layer of bark mulch or wood chips. In this case, because it was tough access back here, we used bagged bark mulch. Lots of times, though, we use wood chip or arborist waste instead. Once the bark mulch is in, then on the path area, we'll put some playground chips to help reduce the weeds in that area. And then as the landscape grows up, it'll look fantastic. The yard we did this makeover on today doesn't look like your average yard because we started with a lot smaller plant material. We did that for a couple of reasons. One, this small plant material will grow healthy roots and will shoot up and look great in a couple of years, and will catch up with larger plant material anyway. Plus it's a lot less expensive if you're on a limited budget.
We planted on the last day of September. It's a great time to plant because the plants will have all this rain that's coming this way. It'll have 6 months to get used to the ground before harsher temperatures come in next summer. And they'll all rebound in the spring, look beautiful. Okay, Susan, come on in and we'll show you what we did today.
Let's stop over here and take a look at a couple of these plants we put in today. This right here is beach strawberry. It's evergreen spreading ground cover that's native to this area. It'll look great. It'll fill in with its glossy leaves. It will cover that mulch and really help suppress weeds too. It also have flowers and edible berries, so if you and Adam get a little hungry out here, although they're not as tasty as the ornamental strawberries. Over here we have red flowering currant. This is that currant I was telling you about that'll grow into a big bush. It's also a native. But you are going to have to take care of these plants. You can't just abandon them at this point. They need to be well watered for the first couple of years. And also you'll need to get in there and get rid of any out-competing weeds. Maybe Adam can help you pull a few of those. But keep those weeds back, keep it watered, and you'll have a low-maintenance landscape in the end.
We also put in a wood chip path that goes back here and then opens up in the back. Just a big enough area for a little table and chairs and a place for Adam to hang out and to watch wildlife.
This looks great. Thank you so much.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another question answered the Natural Yard Care way. If you have questions of your own, call the Natural Lawn and Garden Hotline and tell them you have a question for Yard Talk. And who knows, you may see us answer it on the air. Have a healthy garden.
And a healthy family too.